When you think about football content these days, it feels like everything is geared towards celebrating the icons. The players whose names are known in every country, whose shirts are worn by kids all over the world, whose highlight reels rack up millions of views. And while there's nothing wrong with appreciating world-class talent, sometimes it's easy to forget the thousands of professionals who played at the highest level without ever reaching that status. Personally, some of my favourite football programmes have always been the ones that put the spotlight back on the collective story of a season, rather than just a star individual. I love watching Football League highlights, and when summer rolls around, nothing beats getting completely absorbed in Premier League years. There's something brilliant about seeing an entire campaign condensed into a few hours of goals, talking points, and all those little narratives you've half forgotten. It was actually while rewatching the 2004-05 season on Sky Sports that I started to think about the players who usually slip through the cracks of nostalgia. Not the global icons or record breakers, but the professionals who were, in every sense of the word, decent. The ones who showed up every week, did their job without fuss, and earned the respect of teammates, coaches, and supporters without ever making headlines for spectacular brilliance. The players who might not have commanded huge transfer fees or had their own chance, but whose consistency kept their teams competitive. When you play video games like FIFA Ultimate Team, you see every footballer reduced to a number. And although ratings aren't everything, they do give you a rough idea of how the wider football world perceives someone's abilities. A lot of people only focus on the cards rated above 85, the so-called elite. But there's something quietly admirable about the ones who hover into that solid mid to high 70s range. It's the bracket that says, you belong at this level. You're good enough to hold your own in the Premier League. You might not be the first name on the team sheet, but you're trusted. That's the inspiration for this video. To pick a starting 11 of Premier League footballers who were, in my eyes, the definition of decent. Not superstars, not household names around the world, but reliable professionals who contributed far more than they were ever credited for. Looking up the definition of decent, some words get thrown around which illustrates the kind of players which will make it in both my team and some honourable mention. These words include respectable, worthy, adequate, fair, passable. How much more worthy could David Dunn be in Premier League history with his wonderfully attempted Rabona? Or how about the passable shooting capability of Pedro Mendes? Let alone the goalkeeping capability of Rory Carroll. Anyway, I digress. Let's explain the regulations of the team. Given a standard 4-4-2, these players fit the definition of decent and have had some form of history playing in the Premier League. As much as it would be great to mix some modern players into the mix, it would only be fitting to add players who have either fully retired or are near finished chiselling their knees away after playing football every Saturday for the past 20 plus years. Most importantly, considering there could potentially be hundreds of thousands of players who could be in a decent 11, be sure to add any players you would have in your decent 11, who I may not have added, let alone remembered to add. Just because a footballer isn't seen as great or good doesn't mean that they were bad. Far from it. And it is their reliability and their efforts as professional footballers that is the reason enough for them to be remembered. That, and the realisation that I'm in fact getting too old now. So, let's talk about the decent 11 who have played in the Premier League. Goalkeeper, Dean Kiley. Turns out it's not pronounced Keeley, so I'm doing this a second time now. Right, Dean Kiley was one of those goalkeepers who quietly carved out a long and respectable career in English football without ever courting the celebrity that surrounded many of his peers. Born in Salford in 1970, Kiley began his professional journey with Coventry City. although he never made a senior appearance for them. He spent time on loan in the lower leagues before finding his feet at York City, where he became first-choice goalkeeper and earned a reputation as a dependable shot stopper. It was his consistent performances at York that attracted the attention of Bury, and after a short spell there, Kiley made the move that would define his career, joining Charlton Athletic in 1999. At the Valley, he became a mainstay between the sticks, helping the club establish themselves as a steady Premier League outfit under Alan Kirbishley. For several seasons, Kiley was a model of consistency, commanding in his area, excellent at organising his defence, and rarely prone to mistakes. He racked up over 200 appearances for Charlton and played a key role in their most stable period in the top flight, becoming a fan favourite for his no-nonsense style and reliability. After leaving Charlton, he joined Portsmouth in 2006. But with competition for the #1 shirt fierce, he eventually moved to West Brom. At the Hawthorns, Kiley again proved his value, playing a pivotal role in the club's promotion to the Premier League. Even in his later years, he retained sharp reflexes and a calm presence, qualities that earned him respect in dressing rooms wherever he played. Internationally, Kiley qualified to represent the Republic of Ireland, earning 11 caps between 1999 and 2009. Though he was often behind Shay Given in the pecking order, he was always a reliable squad member, ready when called upon. After hanging up his gloves, Kiley moved into coaching, serving as West Brom's goalkeeping coach and later working on the Republic of Ireland's backroom staff. His experience and steady temperament made him a natural mentor for younger keepers learning the trade. He has also been involved in media work and contributed to football commentary, further demonstrating the depth of his knowledge and passion for the game. Throughout his long career, Dean Kiley was never the flashiest or the loudest, but he epitomised the professional standards every manager values: reliable, consistent, and composed under pressure. He was exactly the kind of goalkeeper any mid-table Premier League side would have been glad to call upon. Simply put, Dean Kiley was the very definition of decent. Right back, Steve Finnan. Steve Finnan is the kind of player whose career quietly commands respect, even if he never courted the limelight. Born in Limerick, Ireland in 1976, Finnan's path to the Premier League wasn't the conventional fast track of a youth academy star. Instead, he worked his way up steadily through the lower leagues, representing Welling United and Birmingham City, before earning a move to Notts County. From there, he was signed by Fulham in 1998, a transfer that would prove transformative for both player and club. At Fulham, Finnan became a mainstay at right back, renowned for his reliability and intelligent positioning. He was instrumental in the club's meteoric rise from the old second division to the Premier League under Jean Tigana. His energy and consistency on the flank soon attracted the attention of bigger sides. And in 2003, Finnan signed for Liverpool, a move that would see him join one of the most storied clubs in English football. At Anfield, Finnan slotted seamlessly into a defence that balanced grit with composure. He made over 200 appearances for Liverpool in all competitions, including 145 in the Premier League, and was the first choice right back during some of the club's most memorable campaigns of the modern era. Most famously, he started the 2005 UEFA Champions League final against AC Milan in Istanbul. Although he was substituted at half-time due to injury, he contributed to Liverpool's improbable comeback victory, securing a winner's medal in the process. Finnan's honours with Liverpool also included the 2005 UEFA Super Cup and the 2006 FA Cup. While he was never the most flamboyant fullback, he was valued for his composure on the ball, his willingness to support attacks, and his excellent defensive awareness. His crossing ability provided a useful outlet on the right, and he often linked up well with the likes of Steven Gerrard and Luis Garcia, Internationally, Finnan was capped 53 times by the Republic of Ireland. He represented his country at the 2002 FIFA World Cup in Japan and South Korea, playing a key role in the side that reached the knockout stages. After leaving Liverpool, he had shorter spells with Espanyol and Portsmouth, but by then his reputation was already secured. A professional's professional who earned the trust of every manager he played for. Since retiring, Finnan has maintained a low profile, pursuing business interests outside football while remaining a respected figure among fans who appreciated his steady, unassuming contributions. Steve Finnan's career was never about headlines or hype, just a decade and a half of hard work, discipline, and quiet excellence. In every way, he was simply a decent footballer. Centre-back, Mikel Silvestre. Mikel Silvestre is one of those players whose career often flew under the radar, even though he nearly spent a decade at one of the biggest clubs in the world. Born in Chambray-les-Tours, France in 1977, Silvestre began his professional career with Rennes before a brief stint in Italy with Inter Milan. But it was his move to Manchester United in 1999 that truly shaped his legacy. Arriving at Old Trafford as a versatile defender capable of operating both as a left-back and a centre-back, Silvestre quickly established himself in Sir Alex Ferguson's plans. His blend of pace, athleticism, and composure made him a valuable asset during an era when United were collecting silverware at a relentless pace. Over the course of his time in England, Silvestre made a total of 249 Premier League appearances, a testament to the trust Ferguson placed in his abilities and consistency. During his 9-year stay at Manchester United, Silvestre won 4 Premier League titles, lifting the trophy in the 1999-2000, 2002-01, 2002-03 and 2006-07 seasons. He was also part of the squad that triumphed in the FA Cup and reached the latter stages of the Champions League on several occasions. While he was rarely the headline act in a team that featured the likes of David Beckham, Ryan Giggs and Ruud van Nistelrooy, Silvestre's steady presence often gave United defence stability, especially in long grueling campaigns where squad rotation was essential. After leaving Manchester, Silvestre surprised many by moving across to Arsenal in 2008, becoming one of the rare players to represent both clubs. Though he wasn't always first choice under Arsene Wenger, he brought a wealth of experience to a youthful Arsenal side. His time at the Emirates was marked by occasional injuries and fierce competition for places, but he still contributed over 2 seasons before finishing his Premier League career with brief spells elsewhere. Internationally, Silvestre earned 40 caps for France and was part of the squad that reached the 2006 World Cup final, further underlining his pedigree at the top level. Following retirement, he maintained a connection with the game through punditry, ambassadorial work, and football development projects, especially focusing on youth coaching and growing the sport globally. Silvestre's career may not have been defined by personal accolades or spectacular moments, but he was exactly the kind of dependable professional any top club needs. A versatile defender who did his job with minimal fuss and maximum commitment. Mikel Silvestre was, in every sense, a decent footballer. Centre-back, Emmanuel Pogatetz. Emmanuel Pogatetz, the Austrian enforcer who patrolled the back line with all the finesse of a bulldozer and ballet shoes. During his time in the Premier League with Middlesbrough, Pogatetz wasn't just decent, he was memorably decent. The sort of player who didn't care for headlines, but boy, you'd remember if he tackled you. Nicknamed Mad Dog, affectionately of course, Pogatetz joined Borough in 2005, fresh from tearing it up in the Bundesliga, and looking like he'd been sculpted from granite. He brought with him a fearless attitude, a fondness for the crunching tackle, and a scowl that would curdle milk. In a team that featured the likes of Stuart Downing and Mark Viduka, Pogatetz provided the steel, or perhaps the tungsten, at the back. Over his 5 seasons at the Riverside, Pogatetz gave Middlesbrough fans a mix of grimaces and grins. He wasn't the slickest defender, nor the fastest, but he had heart, guts, and the kind of take-no-prisoners commitment that makes fans nod in grim approval. He captained the club, led by example and the occasional flying elbow, and never backed down, even if the odds were stacked. Sure, he collected cards like they were Pokemon, but in an era when defenders increasingly tried to be playmakers, Pogatetz reminded everyone that sometimes defending meant defending. The man was a decent player in the truest sense, reliable, determined, slightly terrifying, and always up for it. A cult hero for some, a pantomime villain for others. Emmanuel Pogatetz's time in the Premier League might not have been glamorous, but it was gloriously committed. And in the noble realm of decent footballers, he stands proudly, boots muddy and head held high. Left back, David Unsworth. The full-fat, meat-and-potatoes defender every mid-table club dreams of. A solid centre-back with the look of a pub landlord and the penalty record of a seasoned striker. Unsworth was a quietly outstanding figure in the Premier League's golden age of graft. Best known for his time at Everton, where he had 2 solid stints. Because one just wasn't enough, Unsworth racked up over 300 appearances for the Toffees and carved out a career built on reliability, leadership, and the occasional thundering tackle. He wasn't flash, but he was as dependable as a cup of tea in a crisis. What set him apart from other decent defenders, though, was that left foot. That glorious, no-nonsense left foot. Unsworth scored 38 career goals, an outrageous tally for someone whose main job was clearing danger, not causing it. Most of them came from the penalty spot, where he was as cool as an old-school bank manager. No stutter steps, no theatrics, just a run-up and bang! Bottom corner, job done. And let's not forget, this was a man who once scored on his debut for 4 different clubs, including a lovely strike on his first Everton appearance as a fresh-faced 20-year-old. He even dabbled in management later on. But it's the sight of him bombing forward like a man late for dinner that stays with fans. In the Premier League era of fancy haircuts and defenders trying to be number 10s, Unsworth was gloriously, reassuringly decent. The kind of player you trusted to keep things steady, and maybe nick you a goal when you least expected it. David Unsworth, left back, penalty king, and an icon of solid footballing decency. Left wing, Darren Huckerby. Darren Huckerby. The human spark plug with the sleeves rolled up and the afterburners permanently engaged. I'd bet a tenner most of you watching this had either never heard of him or only remotely remember him during that awestruck relegation dogfight in the 2004-05 season. A winger who made defenders dizzy and fans giddy, Huckerby wasn't just decent, he was delightfully decent. The sort of player who might not have graced the Ballon d'Or shortlist, but certainly graced many a match of the day highlight reel with a slaloming run and a grin. His Premier League adventures took him through the likes of Coventry, Leeds, Manchester City and Norwich, and everywhere he went, he brought chaos to the flanks. Huckerby had one trick, pace, but it was such a blistering no-warning burst of pace that fullbacks across the league still wake up in cold sweats thinking about him flying past them with that mop of hair bouncing behind. At Norwich, he became something else entirely, a cult legend. Dropping into the Championship, he helped inspire a thrilling promotion run in the 2003-04 season, and then showed he belonged in the Premier League the following season with goals, assists, and relentless attacking intent. He was the Canaries' main man, zigzagging down the left, cutting inside with menace, and often finishing with an absolute belter in the far corner. No, He wasn't always consistent, and yes, sometimes his final ball was more enthusiastic than accurate. But Huckabee brought joy, pure run-at-you joy, to every club he played for. He was a throwback to a simpler time when ringers hugged the touchline, terrified defenders, and looked like they were actually enjoying themselves. In the pantheon of decent footballers, Darren Huckabee is the maverick. Fast, fun, and fantastically fearless. Not quite world class, but to many fans, maybe more so Norwich fans, absolutely top class. Midfielder, Steve Sidwell. The ginger general of the engine room. A player who looked like he just finished painting the shed before turning in a solid 7 out of 10 performance in central midfield. He wasn't flashy, but then again, that was never the point. Sidwell was all about graft, timing, and the kind of positional discipline that made managers sleep a little easier. Coming through Arsenal's youth ranks, where he played alongside some serious future stars, Sidwell eventually made his name at Reading. And what a name he made! He was a key cog in that 2005-06 Reading side that romped to Premier League promotion with a record 106 points. Once in the top flight, he proved he could do more than hold his own, snapping into tackles, making late runs into the box, and even chipping in with goals that made you blink twice. Chelsea saw something in him and snapped him up in 2007. A bit of a surprise at the time, like spotting a Ford Mondeo parked among Ferraris. But true to form, Sidwell got his head down, trained like a beast, and made the most of his minutes in a squad packed with Galacticos. He wasn't there to outshine Lampard or Essien. He was there to cover, to press, to keep the tempo ticking. Spells at Aston Villa, Fulham, and Stoke followed. Always tidy, always tenacious. You knew what you were getting. Someone who gave 100% every week with no fuss. A manager's dream. A fan-safe bet. A teammate's best mate on the pitch. Steve Sidwell may not have dominated headlines, but he sure dominated his patch of grass. A rock-solid pro. The midfield heartbeat of my decent 11. Midfielder. Tugay. The grey-haired genius who made time stand still in the middle of the park. Tugay Kerimoglu wasn't just decent, he was delicately brilliant. A Turkish midfield maestro with a passing range longer than most motorway journeys, and a right foot that occasionally sent footballs into orbit. Tugay was the epitome of understated class. Arriving at Blackburn in his 30s, many assumed he was just winding down his career. Instead, he casually rolled back the years for 8 full seasons, bossing games with the swagger of the man who knew he didn't need to sprint to dominate. Tugay didn't run, he orchestrated. With Galatasaray, Rangers, and over 90 caps for Turkey behind him, he brought pedigree to Ewood Park, but never played like someone above the occasion. His role? Keep things tidy, pick the pass no one else saw, and every so often unleash a 30-yard screamer that made fans lose their voices. Sir Alex Ferguson once said Tugay could have played for Manchester United at 38. He wasn't wrong. The man had vision, balance, and a calmness that made chaos melt away. He was the midfield metronome, the cool head, the playmaker who always seemed to know the ending of the story before the first chapter began. Tugay never sought the spotlight, but he earned a loyal cult following. He didn't need flashy boots or choreographed celebrations. He had footballing elegance, and that was enough. In a starting 11 of decent footballers, Tugay adds the class. The head-up pass master who could still leather one-top bins from nowhere. A player's player, a fan's favourite, a Premier League joy. Right midfield, Jerome Thomas. The kind of winger who made you sit up a bit straighter when he got the ball, because something might just happen. Jerome Thomas brought flair, unpredictability, and a touch of street football to the Premier League. The sort of player who tries step over in a phone box and actually pull it off. Thomas came through the Arsenal youth system, but really made his name at Charlton Athletic, where he established himself as one of those classic Premier League wingers. Quick feet, quicker acceleration, and a love for roasting fullbacks. If you were a left-back having a bad day, Jerome Thomas made sure it got worse. His best spell arguably came at West Brom, where under Roberto Di Matteo and then Roy Hodgson, Thomas became a key part of a well-drilled, ambitious, baggy side. He played with confidence and flair. Not always consistent, but always willing to take his man on. That alone earns respect in the world of decent footballers. He had that unpredictable style. A drop of the shoulder here, a jink inside there, and before you knew it, he'd cut in and curled one toward the far post. He wasn't a goal machine, but he chipped in. More importantly, he stretched defences, opened up spaces, and made things happen. The kind of winger who could spark a match into life. Thomas was never the star of the show, but he didn't need to be. He brought energy, entertainment, and a genuine threat down the flank. And for several Premier League seasons, he was a reliable option in any squad that wanted a bit of directness and drive. In a starting 11 of decent footballers, Jerome Thomas brings the trickery, the pace, and just enough chaos to keep the opposition guessing. Striker, Kanu. A man whose legs looked like they were borrowed from a folding deck chair, but when the ball came to him, pure elegance. Kanu, full name Nwankwo Kanu, was one of those rare strikers who didn't rely on blistering pace or brute force. He simply outthought everyone else on the pitch. Standing at 6'5", with the gait of someone casually walking through a shopping centre, you'd never guess he'd had the feet of a futsal player. But give him a tight space, a bouncing ball, or an impossible angle, and he'd conjure something magical, usually with a shrug and a smile. After arriving in the Premier League of Arsenal in 1999, Kanu quickly became a cult hero. He wasn't always a starter in that legendary squad, but when he played, he delivered. Who could forget that ridiculous hat-trick against Chelsea in 1999? Especially the third. Tied on the byline, keeper charging out, and Kanu somehow bent the ball in from a postcode no striker should be shooting from. Just indecently brilliant. He later led the line for West Brom and Portsmouth, continuing to dazzle in spells, popping up with goals that didn't always make sense, but certainly made the difference. He even scored the winner in the 2008 FA Cup final for Pompey, like it was no big deal. Kanu wasn't the most prolific, but his goals were often meaningful, and his touch was smoother than silk on ice. He had this wonderfully casual style that masked how deadly he could be in front of goal. In the starting 11 of decent footballers, Kanu is the mercurial magician up top. Calm, clinical, occasionally outrageous, and always cool. Striker, Andy Johnson. The buzz-cut bulldog with a sixth sense of winning penalties and a work rate that could power a small town. Andy Johnson wasn't just decent, he was relentlessly effective. A striker who never gave defenders a minute's peace and somehow always ended up in the thick of it. Shirt clinging, arms waving, boot flying. Johnson made his name at Crystal Palace, where he rocketed into national consciousness with an astonishing 21 Premier League goals in the 2004-05 season. A campaign where Palace were relegated, but Andy still thrived. That tells you everything. He scored goals in a struggling side by sheer will, movement, and a knack for sniffing out chances. Quick off the mark, deceptively strong, and an absolute menace in the box. Johnson was like a terrier let loose in the penalty area. He didn't need flashy tricks, he just needed a through ball, a moment of hesitation from the defender, or the faintest whiff of a keeper off his line. And if he went down in the process, well, let's just say Premier League referees got to know his face very well. A big money move to Everton followed, and while his numbers dipped a bit, his contribution didn't. He stretched defences, chased everything, and scored key goals, always playing like someone who knew he had to give 100% to make it count, and he always did. Andy Johnson may never have been more class, but he was wholehearted, sharp, and more than capable of putting one past you before you'd even realise he'd made the run. In my team, Johnson brings the hustle, the heart, and the goals. A pint-sized predator who gave every inch for the badge. And that's it. That is my starting decent 11 in Premier League history. Again, like I said in the beginning, there were just too many footballers who could have also represented my decent 11. However, there is a small chance that maybe who you deem decent, I may deem good or great, so be sure to check out my next video covering them strands of quality. In terms of honourable mentions, I can already list about 20 who were both very close to joining this team and instrumental figures in Premier League history. Some names include Kieran Gibbs, Gavin McCann, Mike Taylor, Gary Flitcroft, Oriol Romeu, Igor Bishkan, Quinton Fortune, Antoine Sibierski, Timu Tainio, Aaron Cresswell, Casey Keller, Tony Hibbert, Ricardo Fuller, Nigel Quashie, Darren Ambrose, Shala Amiobi, Lee Catamol, Craig Gordon, Marlon Harewood, and one who I enjoyed playing when he did, Lucas. Thank you so much if you've made it this far and watched the whole ordeal that is my video. Again, be sure to check out the next installment, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.